McWheezy Videos presents Life Equals Episode 1, Life Equals Trauma. What's up, guys? Wheezy Gang, the Wheeze. You see the W? I need y'all to start throwing them hand signs, by the way, the Wheeze. So, like I said, I wanted to start making videos for other things too. This one is a little bit more serious, kind of telling stories about my life. We're going to call this series Life Equals. I just think it's a cool name. And episode 1 is going to be Life Equals Trauma. It's kind of more therapy for myself, and you guys want to listen, you listen. If not, don't. Actually, please listen. I want to, stop doing things that aren't YouTube, so please. By the way, peep the shirt. Sick Shrek meme shirt. Yeah, I know. So, like I said, this is episode 1, Life Equals Trauma. It's mainly based on the year 2020. It was a crazy year for everyone. Some more than others. A lot of people lost people. A lot of people lost themselves, if that makes any sense. So it starts out January. I'm still teaching at River City Science Academy, AP US History, whoop whoop. And all of a sudden we start hearing all these stories about COVID and Corona, and at that point I think it was coronavirus from a bat, as everybody was saying. Then it gets a little bit worse throughout the year, the beginning of the year. Everybody remembers that time, a little crazy. So we fast forward to March, and everything shuts down. The school shut down. I'm teaching virtually. After spring break, we never went back. My wife was already working from home, luckily. And, honestly, it's just everything got insane. The best part about the beginning, at least, was that it made me and my wife really close. I know a lot of people, it broke them up, honestly, like that inability to have your own escape, but for some reason it made us close, and we've never been better, and it's lasted. So like I said, you get those first few months, and it's just insanity. Everybody's going crazy. You can't find toilet paper. You can't find toilet paper, of all things. I understand goods and stuff being bought out, but toilet paper, I don't understand that one. But people are hoarding toilet paper, including my wife. Yes. Not as much as a lot of people, and we weren't selling it. The worst thing though was Lysol though. Lysol, I remember people were selling it for $100 a can. It was insane. And then, we kind of go through the year, get to go places still until they fully shut down, up until I think it was May, whenever everybody fully shut down for a little bit. But restaurants you could still order from and eventually eat in. Florida kind of doesn't give a fuck about COVID. Never has, never will. So we go summer. I'll fast forward. I finished teaching. It was honestly awesome. It was a great year. It was something I enjoyed it. The actual teaching part and the learning, from these kids and teaching these kids and being their confidant in a way. These kids loved me and I loved them. And yeah, there were some bad eggs, but there always is. But I didn't love teaching, if that makes sense. I really didn't get along with the administration. I was more focused on the students than I was the actual school, if that makes sense. My kids did really well on the AP exam. So I definitely taught them, it just felt, but it just didn't feel right. And then with COVID happening, they decided not to assign me back, which I honestly wasn't upset about. I didn't want to go back. And when they decided that though, I started looking for a few other teaching jobs. I had 2 offers. I turned them both down because I just didn't feel it. It wasn't, the passion was gone. Even though I loved the fact that I got to positively affect these high schoolers, and because I know at my age I needed it, or at their age I needed it, but I don't know, it just something wasn't clicking. So I spent the summer looking for teaching jobs. Like I said, had 2 offers, turned them both down. Luckily, I turned both of them down because it comes July. I remember, I believe it was the 5th of July. Yeah. I had COVID, the original strain. I know we're on Z or whatever now, but it was bad for me. I'm not in the most shape, and I have a lot of physical issues, and especially asthma, which is really bad for it. So it wasn't too bad at first, about the first 10 days it was okay. And then it started to get really bad. I remember noticing how bad it was getting whenever I was on the toilet. I couldn't smell or taste anything. And I was trying to use the restroom even though I hadn't eaten or drank in days. And all of a sudden, I woke up with my face on the bathtub and completely naked from the bottom down. I had a shirt on, luckily, but yeah, just like pantsless, face on the bathtub. And my wife woke me up saying, "What are you doing?" I'll never understand how she didn't guess that I passed out. Maybe she just thinks I like laying like that. But she woke me up. We called 911. And what craziest thing is that the paramedics were super rude. One of them was literally saying, "Oh, you don't need to go to the hospital, blah, 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 blah." But the others, not all the paramedics, I took that. It was one paramedic that was really rude. The actual fire truck came with them too, and they all said I should go to the hospital. Like, this is something that, even though we don't see anything crazy wrong with you now, they could give you fluids or something, And I go to the hospital with the rude guy, and I hear him talking to this is 100% true. I hear him talking to the nurse, and he says, "Don't list this as COVID no matter what he tells you, because I don't want to have to clean the rig." What? So, I had COVID at the time. I didn't get a test back yet because I took the test and it hadn't came back yet. But I had COVID. I mean, I couldn't smell, I couldn't taste. I couldn't stop coughing, couldn't stop diarrhea, everything. Every symptom you can have, I had. Except for my throat never really hurt. That was the only thing. And he just possibly risked someone else catching COVID because he didn't want to clean his rig, because he's lazy. And not only was that, he was rude. So I get in the hospital. They give me some fluids and they send me home. I asked to go home. I didn't want to stay. It's, I don't like, especially the fact that I couldn't stay with my wife. I don't know. I'm not much for the loneliness, honestly. Then we go next day. I had to go back to the hospital. I couldn't breathe. They let me go again. I asked them to let me go. I couldn't stay. And again, it was both times they offered. They didn't say, "Hey, I think you should stay." I wasn't completely reckless. They said, "If you would like to leave, you can leave. We're not going to recommend you stay. It's up to you." We're just saying you can. And then go forward one more day. And it's a Sunday. It's July 13th, my niece's birthday. No, July 12th, because I went in. Yeah, I was in the hospital on her birthday. July 12th, my niece's birthday was the next day. And my heart was beating at what felt like 100 miles an hour. And I couldn't stop coughing. So my wife took me to the hospital. I didn't want to go, but, I listened, luckily. And I go to Orange Park Hospital, right? For those of you around Florida, especially Jacksonville, Florida, you'll know it. I get sent, and they keep me. It was to the point where they were like, "Yeah, you've been to the hospital how many times in a row, and your oxygen was low." So they kept me. I was there for about 3 weeks. We'll go over that in more detail. But I remember that first night, I didn't sleep at all. I laid in the bed, the hospital bed. It was, because this was the emergency room bed, the more uncomfortable beds. And I laid there and just thought, what if I die? I could die. It was honestly terrifying. I couldn't see my wife. I couldn't see anyone. You know, my brother, my sister, my friends, couldn't see anyone. We text a lot, but I got to the point where I just stopped texting because everyone except for my wife, because it was too much. You know, I was too tired, and any little movement made me unable to breathe. So I was on oxygen for about that whole day. Then they finally got me a room. At this point, my back was hurting so bad that I couldn't even walk fully, so I had to like limp to the bed in the new room. And this is the second day at this point, so it's my niece's birthday, so I make sure to text her. Couldn't really talk on the phone that well. I did talk to my wife for a little bit then, but by this point, we're on the second day, and the oxygen's not going up; it's staying pretty low. So I tell them, I mean, I breathe out of my mouth a lot. Maybe that's it. So give me a mask, just like a typical, you know, mask, and it was better. I mean, it stayed around the 90s for the most part until, you know, I had a third sleepless night. And at this point, I mean, I literally hadn't slept at all in 3 days. I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking. I drank a little bit, but it's just water, you know, and luckily, but it was very minimal. I felt like I was gonna die at this point already. And, you know, asthma is a bitch, gotta be honest. Like, and I go, and I wake up the next day. Well, like after 3 sleepless nights, like I finally fell asleep for about 20 minutes. It felt like, I'm not for sure, but I did finally get a little bit of sleep. It felt like maybe 10 minutes, honestly. Yeah, I know it wasn't even an hour because they told me. And I had the mask on, but for some reason I couldn't move. When I say I couldn't move, I mean, I'm telling my arms to move and they're not. And I'm calling the nurse because luckily my fingers were the only things I can move. And I'm pressing the nurse button over and over again. And she's like, honey, I'm coming. I know. And I was honestly a pain because I was so worried. This is maybe for another day, but I have really bad anxiety and mental issues on some things. But anxiety is my main one. And I'm freaking out. I'm full panic attack and I can't move. So I'm like, dude, this is it. So they finally come in after me bugging them, and I'm like trying to talk, and my mouth won't even fully open to talk, and I'm trying to tell them I think I'm having a stroke because I didn't know what it was, and they can hear the stroke part, I guess, because they say I don't think you're having a stroke, honey, and they do this test to see if my limbs will move, and I can't move them, but they ran this almost like wiry thing around my leg, and when it hit my foot, my legs would jump. So like, okay, he's not having a stroke. I was like, okay, that's good. I mean, but I still can't move. And, you know, I think they know I'm freaking out a little bit. So they call the doctor as like an emergency, make them come. And the doctor comes and I can't even remember what he said, but he said something about the oxygen. But because I had the mask on for so long, I was breathing in like carbon dioxide the wrong way. I don't know, something weird. And that caused it. So, you know, he's like, well, just, you know, we're going to have to let him sleep this off. So maybe that's what it was not sleeping. I'm not sure. So they gave me something, which they wouldn't give me something to sleep, by the way, because, you know, it's bad for your lungs. There's things that let you sleep that not bad for your lungs, but it constricts your lungs a little bit. So they refused to until that point where I had no choice. And I slept for about an hour. I woke up. I was fine. I mean, you know, granted, everything else was still going on. I just couldn't move again. And about a day after that, again, I literally didn't sleep at all. I'm in a new room, and after that hour nap, I didn't sleep at all the rest of that next night. And in this new room, it's like a special room. I'm not sure why, but I guess it's like the one right before you go to ICU. My oxygen was in the 80s, and they're like, man, we need to switch you to this thing called a rebreather. It's supposed to be like a fast breather, rebreather. There's a word for it. It's supposed to be really high tech and help you breathe better, faster. So they gave me that, and I couldn't use it. And I mean, I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it's not working. And I told my wife, I said it was uncomfortable, but I didn't. And I'm not blaming the hospital staff for most of the issues that happened. Some of them, yeah, it wasn't their fault. Like I said, I wouldn't even say so. Most of them were my fault because I was just freaking out. But it wasn't working. And so he's like, well, just put him back on the mask. And we'll try to get them a BiPAP or some BiPAP, yeah. So it's like where it forces the air in your lungs. This is what people who have sleep apnea wear. They had to measure me for that, and it took like a couple hours to come in. So I'm still barely in the 80s, feeling like shit. And they come in with this paper. Sorry. And the paper said, they explained it. The paper said, like, if you're willing, we, in an emergency case, we'll put you on a respirator. And, I signed it. I mean, I didn't want to because I was tired and I thought I was going to die. And I was like, well, why prolong it? But my wife talked me into it. And that night I started freaking out. I don't even remember getting the BiPAP, and we'll go into that later, why I don't remember a lot of things at this point. But up to that, it was I still remember vividly up to this point, right? The night I remember freaking out, the doctor couldn't come in. So they had the head nurse of the hospital. And like I said, I was a pain in the ass. But my anxiety was through the roof, man. And they couldn't give me they could only give me very light anxiety medicine because of my lungs. And they couldn't give me anything to sleep. So I'm on, for the most part, 5 sleepless days at this point. And they give me finally, the head nurse comes in and she talked to the doctor on the phone, and she gives me this medicine that it's not for sleep, it was for anxiety plus something for depression or something, and it's way stronger than the other stuff. And I fell asleep about 10 minutes after getting that medicine. It was crazy. After that, I don't remember anything until I woke up in about what I would guess, what it felt like to me, like a little nap, but it was 10 days, maybe. No. Yeah, 8 or 9 days is how long that I took, and that I don't have any memory of. And I woke up. And while I was waking up, I just remember I had a almost like zip tie thing, and I'm tied up to the bed. I don't know why. I remember this is in and out of consciousness at this point, and I'm yelling. I'm like, I want to see my wife. I want to see my wife. I want to see my wife. I'm freaking out. Every time the nurse walks in, I flick her off and tell her to fuck off. It was crazy. I didn't know who the nurse was. I didn't even know I was in the hospital. I thought I was home and someone kidnapped me. And in my brain, I made up this whole story. This is 100% true. I made this whole story that my wife sent me away to this haunted house to earn $5,000 if I pass it. And a free cruise with Disney. So in this haunted house, it kept playing these almost stories over and over again. The first one, the nurse would come in, and then she'd walk out, and I'd see ghosts almost, and skeletons walking around. And where the TV was, it would open up. The TV would open up, and then there was this big blue blob that would just fall on my face. I don't know. And I would wake up after that. After it fall on my face, I just remember waking up again. And when I wake, and this happened over and over again. So but it had an order. So then the second thing that kept happening is I was in a boardroom. Again, I'm in this, each one I'm strapped somehow. And the first one I'm laying down strapped in a hospital bed. And the second one I'm strapped in an office chair. And we're in a boardroom, and everybody's yelling at each other and stuff. And then all of a sudden a fight breaks out, and I can't get up and get away or fight back. And the nurse would walk in and hit me in the face, and I'd wake up again. And this was the third and final one. And then, like I said, they would just be on repeat, these 3. I would be at someone's house, and I would be and I would be sitting there, and I would start melting. And I'm so serious. I don't know what happened, but I would melt, and it would feel like I'm melting, and not hurt, but it just the weird feeling of drowning and melting and the craziest shit. And I would wake up, and it would start over. I'd be in the hospital bed waiting for the nurse, and as soon as she came in, I'd flick her off and yell at her. And it would just do those 3 things for what felt like days. I really don't know how long it was. Then all of a sudden, after what felt like days of doing those 3 scenarios over and over again, what I assumed what actually happened was that the nurse just kept coming in, and that would trigger the new weird nightmare. But like I said, after 3 days, I finally woke up and I'm just in a normal hospital bed, and I'm like, where am I? And she goes, "You're at the hospital." And I said, "Why?" I mean, I want to see my wife. She goes, "You're in the hospital. You've been in here for days." I'm like, "Really?" And I was like, "Well, can I have my phone?" And she'd give me my phone, and I'd call my wife. And I called my wife, and I said, "Hey." She says, "Oh my God, hey," because I'm out of a coma at this point, and this is my first time calling her, and so she's super excited, and I'm just like, what's going on? Like, where am I? I don't know where I'm at. In my head at this point, I'm in a whole different state. In an underground of the hospital is a haunted house, and I swear my wife set me up, and I was so mad at her, but I didn't say anything at this point. I'm just like freaking out, like, where am I? And she's like, no, you can't come home yet, but you're in the hospital. I'm like, where? Like, what state am I in? She goes, Orange Park Hospital, Brandon. And I'm like, what? It's, I'm just lost. And so I kind of set my phone, or I set my own phone down for a second. And I'm just looking around and I'm like, oh shit, this is Orange Park Hospital. And I pick it back up, talk to my wife for a little bit. And she says, I'm going to come by and see you later. I said, oh, okay. Then nurse comes in. She tells me, because I don't know what the fuck's going on at this point. You were in a coma for 7 days. I said, what? Yeah, you were in a coma for 7 days. You just woke up. You woke up yesterday, but we couldn't do anything because you were delirious. And I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean? You're crazy. No, I mean, she's like, I'm serious. You were in a coma for 7 days because of COVID. We had to put you on a respirator. You signed the paperwork and we did it. And I said, okay, well, I believe you at this point, but I still don't know what's going on. And she tells me, well, that's because we gave you medicine to make you forget. What? That's a thing? Yeah, apparently there's medicine that makes you forget things. And I didn't know that was a thing. I shouldn't be surprised, but yeah, that makes me think that like truth serum is definitely a thing now. Uh, this medicine, like, I don't remember the day after I had that massive freak out and the head nurse came in. Apparently I was in the BiPAP. I had a BiPAP on my face, which is like this huge thing. And I kept telling my wife how uncomfortable it was. And she has pictures to prove it, like that we were texting back and forth because I couldn't talk on the phone. And then they moved to ICU and my lung collapsed. I no fucking clue. I don't remember any of those 2 days. So 2 days before the coma, I have no memory of. So that's probably 9 days, right, total, that I have zero memory of. Maybe even 10, because the day after the coma, where I had like that weird hallucinogenic shit. And it's just insane. Like ever since then, I've felt like I don't know what happened to me, and it's true, and they did it for a purpose, but it doesn't feel right. Like I feel like something's wrong. Like I just have this piece of my life missing forever. Even though it shouldn't have been there, apparently, like they did it because it would give me more trauma, which I mean it didn't. I'm sure it lessened it, but it's still here. It just was weird. But what sucks is one of the things I wish they would have gotten rid of was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. The day that I was freaking out, the last day I remember before the coma, I told y'all I signed the paper that said I can be put on a respirator. And I got so bad, like my oxygen was so low that I called my wife and I told her bye, as if I was never gonna talk and never gonna see her again or talk to her again. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'll never forget it. I literally thought I was done, and I just said, I love you so much. I really fought, baby, and I just want to say I love you so much, and I want to tell you bye. And she kept saying, don't say that, don't say that. I remember so vividly, and it hurts to this day to think about. I honestly hope like that doesn't happen to anyone else. That it's just, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm not saying not to say goodbye. Now, if you know you're dying, maybe it's good. Maybe they'll need it. But if you're thinking you're dying and then you do it, when you wake up, you're never going to forget it. And it's going to hurt. It was tough. and there's never going to be a day where I don't think about it. And she thinks about it because it hurts her, hearing that, like that. She thought I was, basically giving up. But I wasn't. I kept fighting, and I made it. I'm here now. That's not the end of the story. Don't worry. But so I go about, fast forward back to the normal time. I'd say about, I don't know, maybe 6 days after that, finally get out of the hospital. I'm gonna go back for a minute and then we'll go to that. In those probably 6 days where I was in the hospital, I slept one full day because it was the day, 2 days after I woke up, I was fully conscious and remembering things. And, I call, and my wife shows up that day. Like I said, she said she was going to show up. I called her first. She showed up every day that I was in that coma, and every day before that, and every day after, just to see me. Even she couldn't talk to me some of the times, and she couldn't touch me ever. She just saw me through the window of the room, and we talked on the phone. Honestly, it shows me that she's the strongest woman of all time. And so she shows up, and I'm mad. I'm pissed off. I'm like, what the fuck, babe? She goes, what? Like, you fucking sent me to the haunted house. What, Brandon? What are you talking about? I was like, babe, I'm telling you, I have text to prove it. I literally, at that moment, was reading text on Facebook Messenger and could read one message from my wife, or from a friend of mine, that said, hey, this is Kristen on Brandon's phone. I'm going to send him to this haunted house. He'll be gone for 2 weeks, and we're going to get some money, so don't freak out if you don't hear from him. And I'm just like, I saw that. I swear I saw it. I screenshotted it while she's at the window watching me, and I sent it to her. And she's like, Brandon, I mean, if you're not going to talk to me, I got to go, baby. I got to go back to work. I love you, and I want to talk, but I really didn't do anything like that. I knew it. I was like, I was not wrong. She did it, right? I sent her the text, and she's like, that doesn't say anything about it. I'm like, yes, it does. For days, I believed it. I'm like, baby, you really did send me here. And she's like, I really didn't. So we talked for a little bit. I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about this later. Talked for a little bit. She leaves. She comes back again the next day, and I am so tired. I slept for like 24 hours, it felt like. And she showed up, and I'd wake up, talk to her for a minute, and then I'd fall asleep. When I wake up, and I'd talk to her for a minute, I'd fall asleep. And it was crazy because she was like still there, and still, even though I was like falling in and out of sleep, she was still there and stood there. And then she left to go back to work finally, and I just slept. I had a mean nurse that day, by the way, but we don't have to talk about that. And then, we cut forward. I go back to not sleeping again, about 2 or 3 days in a row not sleeping. And then they finally moved me out of the ICU, and I go back to that same room, like the right for the ICU, but they needed it, so they had to move me again. But in that room right for the ICU, I remember talking to the nurse. She was probably about my age. And I started crying and my eyes out. And she goes, what's wrong? And she even said, like, or I even said, like, sorry. God. She comes out to me and she says, well, I'm not supposed to tell you this because, but, we all are rooting for you. Every nurse in this hospital, even though you did freak out a little bit and we're a pain in the ass sometimes, we are all rooting for you to make it. You're too young for this. And I was already crying at this point, and I was just like, well, why is it fair? And she goes, what? Why is it fair that I got to live and all these other people die, including some children at this point were dying from COVID? And again, I know it's mainly old people and people like me with underlying conditions, but there's kids who have died. And I just felt so guilty. I literally couldn't get over it. I was sobbing for like maybe 20 minutes, and she held my hand the entire time through a glove, and she had a mask on, and I did too. And she just talked to me and like kept like stroking my hand a little bit, talking. And finally I calmed down, and I just said, you know what, thank you so much for that. It really helped. And I felt way better about myself at that point, because her whole thing that she kept saying is like, there's a plan, even if you don't believe in God, there's a reason you made it. And I believe that. I believe that there's a reason that I lived. To cut forward, we go next room. It's the day I finally get to go home. Oh my God, it was amazing. They told me I get to go home after doing all these tests of walking. Can I walk? Which was barely. Had to use a walker for 2 weeks. Had to be on oxygen at home for 2 weeks, but they made sure I could do it. And then I'm waiting for them to show up. I call my wife. I'm like, hey, Can you bring me some clothes? She brings some clothes up there, take it to the wrong room first, which was hilarious. And, I put my clothes on, and I'm just sitting there like, all right, when they're going to be here? When are they going to be here? So I'm all antsy, I can't really move around much, but I'm like rocking back and forth almost. And finally they show up with the stuff. I'm just like, yes, it's here. It's time to go home. I get to go see my dogs. I get to see my wife. I get to touch her, which I couldn't because I still had COVID, but I didn't know that. And they took like 45 minutes. Like to get the stuff there, it took hours. It literally was like 3 hours before all the stuff got to my hospital room to be able to leave the oxygen tank and the walker. And then when it did get there, it took like 45 minutes for them to show up. So I'm freaking out like, oh my God, my wife's downstairs. I need to go. Come on, come on, come on. Finally get there. They take me downstairs in the wheelchair, and I see my wife, and I never have seen someone so beautiful in that moment. Like even my wedding, I think she was more beautiful at this moment because there was just so much that I knew that she did for me now and that she would do for me in the future. And it's just, like I said, it was amazing. And we get in the car, go home, and we have to stay away from each other. Yes, she still had to help me up to go to the bathroom, and she still had to help me up to go eat and help me brush my teeth, help me shower. 2 weeks of that. It was rough. Out of the hospital, it was a lot of sleeplessness still. Getting better at that point, but still a lot of sleeplessness, and we had to sleep separate. All this, and but it was good to be alive. Like I've been depressed in my life, and I've wished I was dead before, but I haven't wished I was dead since then. It showed me that there's a reason I'm here. No, I don't know what it's for, and I may never know, but there's a reason. And I've never loved someone as much as I love my wife, and I never will. Maybe, I mean, if we eventually have kids, I'm sure I'll love them just as much. I don't think I'll love anyone more. There's just no one that I think would have done that for me. The amount she did, and went through the amount she did for me. And sorry, but backtrack. When I got home, I have a beagle, 2 beagle mixes. It's a beagle and a pointer, and a beagle and a basset. Beagle and basset's kind of crazy. His name's Lincoln. And I get home, and the beagle and the pointer, his name's Baxter. He's freaking out like, oh my God, you've been gone for so long. He's jumping on me, which is not good at this moment. I literally can't walk, but I loved it. He's literally whining while I'm petting him because he missed me so much. And then Lincoln comes out, and he's freaking out like, who the fuck are you? He's growling at me. He didn't bite me, but and then all of a sudden he finally, he gets a little bit closer, like slowly but surely, because he's very skittish, and he finally realizes that it's me, and he starts freaking out and whining and loving on me. But he was so terrified of the oxygen tubes and shit that he wouldn't get that close to me for days. Then I finally tested negative, and I was like, I still wasn't able to walk very well, and had to have oxygen for about a week after I tested negative. Yeah, it was a fight, and I made it, and I'm stronger for it. Unfortunately, I got in the hospital after the coma. I lost 40 pounds, right? I was like, oh, that's cool. Everybody's like, man, you look so skinny. Well, unfortunately, I gained it all back because I was eating my ass off after not eating for freaking weeks. I literally, in 2 months, I gained 60 pounds. I was heaviest I've ever been in my life. I was at 360 pounds flat. It was 360 exactly. And so yes, the story still continues. I said 2020 for a reason. 360 pounds, and I'm a large guy already. So, that was not good. I was barely able to breathe already because my lungs are scarred to shit and still are. They're a little bit better, but I had really bad muscular atrophy from being in the bed so long. I still can't lift near as much as I do. My arms and legs shake after barely doing things. Like me squatting, doing a squat without any weight, my legs are completely shaky, like to the point where I'm almost falling. And it is getting better slowly but surely. It's been over a year now, and almost 2 years, and it's just slowly. I'm still not back to me, but like I said, I got up to 360, and now I'm down to 298, so 296. So I've lost almost 60 pounds, almost 70, doing good. Hopefully gonna lose more. I just can't really work out yet still, but I'm trying. Like I said, muscles are still not here. I used to be a pretty strong guy, played high school football, and always lifted, and I like lifting, but I can't do that right now. Hopefully it'll get better. I know it will, honestly. And I learned from that experience, though, that trauma is I've had trauma in my life. I have PTSD before that. From crazy things that happened in my childhood. But trauma is, I don't think it's always a bad thing. Yes, it hurts to think about, and yes, it will never be forgotten. And yes, my family will always feel that pain. But what I did learn is that I have the best woman in the world. I'm a fighter. I learned that from this trauma. I'm a fighter. I never give up. I know how dangerous this disease is. People don't take it seriously. I'm not gonna say do your vaccines, wear your mask. That's not up to me. I'm just saying some people should take it more seriously. That however they want to do that, that's up to them. I learned that we have real heroes in those hospitals. I learned that, I feel like it made me a better person. And like I said, trauma is hard and it's a struggle to deal with, but sometimes it's good. It's a teacher. You learn from failure. Well, I wouldn't say trauma is failure, but you learn from trauma too. Even if it's not always, there's certain parts I wish I could forget, but I don't want to right now. Certain parts I wish I could forget, but I don't want to forget the other stuff to where I don't want to risk trying to forget everything. So, it was a crazy year. That's basically the whole story of COVID for me. But, we move on. We continue to grow, even through the trauma. I just, thank you for listening, by the way. There's a little bit more, but just keep going. So, COVID's over. I'm really fat at this point. We're in about October. I don't have a job. I can't do much physically. I can't stand up at a register. I can't stock. I'm applying at places that I work from home, but it's just hard. So luckily, my father owns a business, and he finally was like, you know what, you can just come and work here for me in the office. So I do that. I'm struggling. I had brain fog and still do, but it's not as bad for a long time. And I couldn't remember things. I would do some paperwork and completely forget to put it somewhere I was supposed to, or I wouldn't even do the paperwork and forget someone told me to. It was hard. It was, and I was always like, anytime I had to go like places, I was always so physically hurting, and I still am, but that it was like rough, because sometimes I had to, help other than just office stuff, and it was a struggle. And eventually I started to get it. I was learning, and I was starting to take over the office fully. It was good. But it was a struggle. And I know I've said it like 8 times, but it just was like the brain fog. I mean, those people who say like long haulers aren't real, or you have people who act like COVID isn't real. Well, it's real, and long haulers are terrible. I, to this day, almost 2 years later, still have moments of brain fog where I'm just forgetting every little thing. I still have trouble breathing, walking too far, and I've been working on my cardio the little bit that I can. It's just getting a little better. I've been to a million doctors. I've got scarring on my lungs. That's never going to go away. My muscles are still atrophied. They're starting to get better, and hopefully will get completely better. Who knows how I gained a new condition, multiple, but this one was crazy. I don't remember the name, but it's like vagovagal or something like that, where there's a vein in my chest, basically, right? And if I laugh or cough too hard, or like jump up and get super excited, I'll pass out. I've passed out this year after passing out one time in my entire life before. In 2021 and now 2022, I've only passed out once, but 2021 I passed out like 8 times. And the first time I find out about this vagovagal or whatever is unfortunately on a camping trip. I go on a camping trip to celebrate that I made it, that I lived through COVID. This is early November, maybe late October. Luckily, my job let me have some time off for this. We're going to what's supposed to be a 2-day camping trip. We get everything set up, and we get the canoes, and yes, canoes. And we start paddling. We're paddling, long-ass trek on these freaking canoes. We turn around to go back. And all of a sudden, I'm like, man, I don't feel so good. My brother, he's in the canoe with me, and he goes, Brandon, chill out, you're fine. And then my cousin, he comes up next to me, and he says, you're white as a ghost, man. What's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to pass out. And now I'm starting to feel like I'm going to throw up. And again, remember, I've only passed out one time before this in my entire life, and I don't remember it at all, really. So this is a new feeling to me. And he keeps saying, Ryan keeps saying, that's my brother, he keeps saying, if you pass out and flip this canoe, I'm Ubering home, and you're going to have to find another ride. And I'm like, Ryan, I'm not doing it on purpose, man. I really don't feel well. He's like, I was like, man, can we like pull over or something? He's like, Brandon, where do you want me to pull over? There's all there is docks everywhere. It's, you know, can't pull up on someone's dock. About maybe a minute goes by, and boom. I, I wake up in the water. Luckily, I had a life vest on, and luckily I was turned on my back. And I'm like, what the fuck, freaking out. And then my cousin, and then I passed back out, it felt like, because I remember falling back asleep. And then all of a sudden, my cousin hits my foot with his canoe, and I jump up again. I'm like, whoa, what is going on? And I was just, I don't remember, but I passed out. And luckily, we gave my phone and my brother's phone to someone else's canoe because, you know, we knew that something was going to happen. I don't know how, but we did. I lost my knife. Bought a brand new badass knife. It's gone forever. Luckily, I got my shoes. They were stuck in the mud, but I got them. And I am just fucking. Basically, I thought honestly, I could have died. Luckily people were there. My nephews, backtrack a little bit. My nephew, we're leaving, and they give us all these whistles, and my nephew's like, so what is this whistle for? And they go, you blow it if something happens and you need us. We're pretty, we can hear it from around 3 miles away, whatever. Okay, we're about maybe at most a half a mile from this fucking campsite, and my nephew is blowing this whistle. Him and his brother are blowing these whistles as hard as they can. Not a single person comes by. We're just, not only that, we also have a boat that drives by and just drives right by. People are just, I don't got time for that. So they go by, and like I said, I get up on this guy's boat to get out, and we flip the canoe over, and we start going again. And my brother's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, what? You didn't do anything? I passed out. He's like, no. When you passed out, I didn't know what happened, and I was just cussing you out and saying, what the fuck, you motherfucker, da 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 da. And until I realized you weren't answering, and then I started freaking out like, Brandon, answer me. So yeah, to this day, I like to make fun of my brother for cussing me out for me passing out and almost dying. That was like the craziest thing. And like I said, I found out I had this new condition, and I passed it out about 6 times in 2021, maybe 2 or 3 in 2020, and 1 in 2022 so far. We go back to the campsite. We end up staying the night only, and we leave. And it was honestly a good time, and it felt good to celebrate. Like I did it, I made it. That's, then the rest of the year kind of was pretty easy for the most part, until about December. It's like I just got this new job, not making much, and my wife hasn't had her promotion yet. She got a promotion by now, and so and we're struggling to buy Christmas presents, and I am a big Christmas guy. I buy Christmas presents for everyone that I know, so that part sucked a lot, but we scrounged enough together to get everybody the people we want to get Christmas presents. They're just not as good as usual, and it didn't feel as good. It's just, I remember vividly like that, how bad I felt. And I know it's not the amount that matters, but it just, like, I didn't feel good quality, even the stuff that I got him. And we were all like so distant because COVID was going on. So like I couldn't even, give them the stuff I wanted to face to face. I couldn't, hug anyone really. I mean, at this point when we're starting to do a little bit more hugging and stuff, but it wasn't everyone. I know not everyone was there. I couldn't hug everyone. I couldn't, I couldn't stand it. It was a rough year, 2020. And 2021 started, and we'll say it wasn't great either, but save that for another day. But yeah, that's the first episode. So, thanks for coming. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment some more ideas you have. This is episode 1 of Life Equals with McWheezy. Don't forget, Wheezy Gang. The Wheeze. And like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.